am is I've come upon a thought, but I don't know how to deal with it this moment. I said, well, what is it? He says, we fought long for integration. It looks like we're going to get it. I think we get the laws. He says, but I'm afraid that I've come upon something I don't know quite what to do with. I'm afraid that we're integrating into a burning house. And when we asked for further clarification, Andy Young was with me at that time, my wife, others. He said, America's lost whatever little moral vision it had. Its moral sense has run away from the nation. And a nation that is not governed by morality and moral principles is a nation that's headed for an abyss. And I think black people have been struggling to get into this system, maybe getting into a system that in the final analysis is a Sodom and Gomorrah, will not work. Because its selfish goals, its need for profit, its need for supremacy, its need to be the best has clouded its moral vision. And with no moral vision, no nation can be healthy enough to lead its people anywhere except to destruction.
What's up, family? This is your man, not your boy, Go Black to Africa. I want to share with you all a video. Harry Belafonte passed away this past week. An activist who even marched with Martin Luther King. He shared a history with what Martin Luther King had said, that he led his people into a burning house. Not only that, I have the video of Martin Luther King stating his dream was a nightmare. Check the video out and I'll be back.
I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future. But I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments, and I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go. Now we are confronting issues that cannot be solved without costing the nation billions of dollars. Now, I think this is where we're getting our greatest resistance. They may put it on many other things, but we can't get rid of slums and poverty without it costing the nation something.
The last thing Dr. King said to me before he was murdered was in my home when we were sitting planning strategy for the Poor People's Campaign, which was on the horizon of the politics of the day. That's why he went to Memphis. And in the course of that meeting, he seemed distracted and a little underfocused. And when we asked him what was the matter, Martin said, you know, I've been thinking long and hard about our struggle. We worked tenaciously for our rights. And the culmination of all that effort will be reflected in what we've come to call the integration movement. And I sit here deeply concerned that I suspect we are leading our nation on an integration trip that has us integrating into a burning house. I don't think we quite understood how pathetic that remark was. After all, we're in the midst of a very heady moment in our struggle. We were winning on a lot of frontiers. Bull Connor had been confronted. The bus boycotts had worked. Votes were coming. Even Lyndon Baines Johnson had been struck by the spirit and got up and talked about we shall overcome in the Congress. And for Dr. King to have been in this place at a time when we seemed to be making great headway was a moment to pause and reflect. That reflection has taken longer than I had suspected it would, but it has certainly come to reveal itself fully when we look at the condition in which we find not only our world, but in particular, our nation.
What do you think? You know, family, I've said this a couple years ago, and I'm glad that I found his video, him saying this was a nightmare, that Martin Luther King, his dream was a nightmare. That's what I said a few years back. When we see in damn Erica, put the D in front of America, capitalize the E, damn Erica, that you have people who have come into the countries, immigrants and refugees or what have you, who have established their own communities and are thriving, living and supporting their life. They may not be rich all, but middle class, and some have gone on to bigger things. But for the most part, when integration in the 60s of Martin Luther King trying to force a people into an evil system, an evil way of people who did not stand us, who despised us, who had nothing more than a ploy, a plot to keep us back, and to this day keep us back, we were a thriving people in our own communities. Though it was not perfect, though it was not innocent, it was a thriving community of brothers and sisters who had their own schools, their own physicians, their own dentists, their own bankers, their own shops, their own craftsmen, and all of these businesses that we did to help each other out. I remember the day. I remember the day when the community did not disperse out into what we see today, every man for himself. Every man go off to his own place, that fights to try to blend in, camouflage in, to try to get into what we would call a place of achievement in the white man's society or their neighborhoods or their schools. We have fought long and hard trying to remove ourselves from our own identity only to become one like them. This is only because of the image that was pushed that you are not equal unless you have been embraced by them or looked upon within their community as not being black. This is a sad day when we have forgotten who we are, forgotten where we had came from, forgotten the struggle. We have only looked upon each other as being less than. Those who are now in a wrecked community, being that the drugs and the guns that have come from the outside, we have done nothing but kill each other. But the day is changing now, because even those thugs, those ones who see themselves less than, who don't know who we are, who were not part of the struggle when it came to fighting, they are now realizing them themselves are not the enemies. You see, I've said this before, white America will get in trouble once black men wake up and realize we are not our own enemies. You see, when America has flooded the system or flooded the communities with guns and drugs, they have found that that curse have come back on their own. When we were screaming about the drugs in our neighborhoods, when the crack epidemic came about, now the Europeans, the white communities, are flooded with opioids. When we screamed about the guns in our communities, white people now see their schools are being shot up by their own, by mass shootings. People going into their schools, going into their malls, going into the movie theaters, that the curses have come back onto them. It's not until white people realize they have to repay what was done to black people in order for all to experience free liberty and justice. They will never see it. Now we see the epidemic of homelessness because we have screamed about inequalities of housings, opportunities to get loans for houses. Now you're seeing many of them on the streets and on every corner begging. Homelessness is at an all-time high. And when you see who's out there, who do you see? I'm saying, family, that Martin Luther King and his dream in his own admittance, was a nightmare, and it was putting up people into a burning house. That if you see here in Africa how the people get along, live together, build together, thrive together. Though the democracy I disagree with, it is not a place for Africa. Africans need to get away from a democracy government. It is only for the greedy, and you have people who will always suffer and will find it harder to get into a middle class or work their way up as a majority. Africa has to stop taking on the behaviors of white America and Europe. Once we free ourselves from that and we realize that our own resources, our own opportunities bless us instead of blessing others, then we will find the greater fruits from the Most High. I am not just saying this just to throw mud on damn Erica. It is a strategic warfare that has been around for thousands of years, and how to cripple societies when they want to come in and disturb your neighborhoods, disturb your countries. The day is coming where our youth are watching these videos and realizing they are going to be the future to change their countries, their consciousness, and the way of life. Until then, I guess the old will have to die off. This is your man, not your boy. Go Black to Africa.
Think about it.